could very well save your life.
Alrighty, let's try this again. Always getting hit with these technical difficulties. All right, we're going to dive back into Abby and Libby's case, also known as the Delphi murders. Welcome back. This is the Sleuth Intuition channel. Yeah, looks like we have Eminem back in the building. Cup Few, Jari, Sweets, always good to see you. And Jill Moser. She Warrior, what's up? Okay, so once again, we know for a fact Brad Weber was on the private drive interrupting Richard Allen right at 2:31. We know that. How do we know that? Because we have supporting evidence to back that up. That's how we know it. So if we know exactly when Brad Weber was making it around that bend, going underneath the Monon High Bridge, and he only had a short distance to go and he's home. He's not thinking that two girls are being murdered just below. And it is a cliff face, even much taller than this one here. According to the data on Libby's phone, that's only 2 floors. And it looks like 2 floors, right? All right, so going back to this, we know it's a fact because Brad Weber testified to it, and he was able to corroborate his testimony with the time card. And we know it's only a 29-minute drive from Lafayette to Delphi. That's where he worked, in Lafayette. Said, I got off at 2:02. Why? Because they made me. They said, hey, we don't need you. Get out here. Clocks out at 2:02, drives straight home. He's tired. He wants to go to sleep. It's been a long week. Apparently, he drove to Arizona and back. Spent one day and then came back. So he's tired and then went directly to work at like 5 a.m. in the morning. But his testimony, his time card, Richard Allen's own words, and the data from Libby's phone all tell us that it is a fact that that van was on that private drive at 1:31. Excuse me, 2:31. I apologize. So let's fast forward to 2:31. And what we're looking at here is all the information from Libby's phone, what it was doing. All right, 2:48 went too far. Or excuse me, that's 1:48. Not far enough. Okay, we know that Brad Weber is on that bridge, or just underneath the bridge on the private drive. Look, and there you have it. 2:31. Exactly when he should be there is the moment they begin to move and go up 2 flights in elevation. The exact moment that we should be expecting Brad Weber and his white van, we have the girls moving. Why? Because that's what happened. That's exactly what happened. We can prove it. They proved it to the jury. Like, look. Well, how far did they go? Just far enough to make it across the creek. And unfortunately, he was able to catch up to the girls. Well, now that we know that, so let's see. Let me pull up a video I think was originally put out by Michael Osbrook. We have a car that's coming and going. First, I want to determine whether or not it's the same car. Okay, so Osbrook's timestamp on the van, and I can play that video here. So 2:44 is the timestamp they have on here. 2:44 a.m. to be precise. Right? We can clearly see that it's a van. Well, not clearly. It looks very distorted, right? It almost looks like a toy Jeep. Much too big to actually be a Jeep, right? But it has that because of the blurring and the pixelation. So 2:44. Well, if it's 2:44, we know that this is off by what? 13 minutes. Because we know for a fact that the white van was under the Monon Bridge and right at the final bend of the private drive at 2:31 p.m., not 2:44 a.m., according to this security footage here. So what does that mean? What are the implications of that? Well, let's look at some other footage that was released by Osbrook. Now, this is a car he has time stamped at 2:07 a.m. This is a close up on it. I just kind of running it back and forth. So this is at 2:07. Well, if it's off by 13 minutes, that means that it's actually at 1:54 p.m. So what does that mean? Some people say that, well, that could be Kelsey. Why is Kelsey dropping them off and pulling and whipping around? Well, it can't be Kelsey because this was 6 minutes. And according to the defense, this car came in and left. So how did she drop? She doesn't have a self-driving car. So how did she drop herself off and then 1 minute later drive the same vehicle off? Well, something interesting is I'm not even convinced that these are the same cars coming in and going out. But what does that mean if we do have a car going into the private drive and leaving at 1:54 shortly before the girls are kidnapped? Could that, I think that leans more into the whole Keegan Kline orchestrated ambush angle, right? The whole we'll use our cell phones as our alibi and we'll go perpetrate this crime. That could be the very reason that Richard Allen was visiting his mom. You know, just leave my phone here. Maybe even just drop it in the car or something. It might have backfired, or he panicked because people seen him. So we know that these videos right here put out by the defense are off by, not only is it not AM, it's PM, and they're off by 13 minutes. But does that mean anything? That we have this vehicle at 1:54? It can't be Kelsey unless she picked somebody else up or somebody else was in her vehicle or somebody got into the driver's seat over here somewhere and took, left her and took the car. Which doesn't make any sense. And also, she would have to be the fastest driver in the world. She'd have to be like a race car driver. Because we have proof. Actually, let's pull that up too. The exhibits. All right. That looks like Betsy. Betsy leaving. Betsy coming back. There we go. So we have Kelsey leaving at 1:49. Yeah. So actually, it would have been a little bit less. Would have been about 5 minutes. Well, unfortunately, it's a 9-minute drive. So mathematically, it can't be Kelsey. So I hate to burst everybody's bubble that likes to blame her, the hair and all that. It's a 9-minute drive. And 10 minutes if she chose not to jump on the 25. And we know she didn't go this way. So unless she knows some kind of secret shortcut and had another person with her, or she was dropping somebody else off. I don't remember hearing about another person. All right. So mathematically impossible that this is Kelsey. We got a 9-minute drive, and she would have done it in 5. So she must be from back, from Back to the Future. She has a flying car. So you guys can just throw that out the window. Not to mention, I don't even know if these are the same cars, right? The ones coming and going. So you have this one coming in. I can't even tell if it's white. It's just like everything's reflecting the light, which because of the contrast is going to make everything look bright. Right there it does, but over here it doesn't look. For all we know, this is Betsy Blair's boxy looking car. It's definitely not Kelsey. So let's pull up screenshots of both of these vehicles. Like I'm telling you, I'm not even convinced the car coming in is the same one leaving. So here's the car coming in. Right, yeah. And here's the one leaving. This one seems much longer and actually looks like a white car and seems to match better with what Kelsey was driving. But it looks like a large vehicle. Coming, going. They don't look like the same vehicle. And you have homes back there on the private drive. You have, let's say, the babysitter showing up. Now mom can leave. My friend's here, mom, we're leaving together. Or somebody's just coming home while somebody's leaving. So I just don't understand the importance of this vehicle. Or at 154, the killer showed up. These are the same vehicles. Maybe somebody that was working with Keegan Kline and Richard Allen. Maybe this is the whole Trexler side of it all, right? Another party. I mean, we do get some kind of creepy vibes from this video. Here, let me pull this back up. I'm going to play the original. And what I'm trying to say is, how do we know that somebody's not underneath the bridge right now? How do we know that at 154, the vehicle that's pulling in isn't dropping somebody off here and then going back to the cemetery? Just because people are putting out information, they may not be 100% right on what they're claiming, but they might have something. It might be something of significance. So we know that the time stamp is off by 13 minutes. That puts whoever's in this vehicle at 154. Mathematically, it cannot be Kelsey. I'm not even convinced that it's the same car coming in as the same one leaving, but it could be. And for whatever reason, if somebody's coming and going in a minute, that's obviously they've dropped somebody off, right? They dropped off. If they're involved, they're dropping somebody off and then they're leaving. 6 minutes after the girls were dropped off. Well, 7. And if they're being stalked on Snapchat and Instagram, remember they're receiving these photographs from Instagram that were downloaded. One looks like it's under the bridge. One is looking at where they ended up being kidnapped. They're looking off of the bridge and looking towards the place that they ended up being murdered at. Why are they downloading that photo on the way to the trail? Right? And then they have another photo that appears to be from underneath the bridge or down near the water where they eventually ended up. So does this feed more into the Keegan Kline conspiracy? We know that his phone was tied into a Wi-Fi over there at the Trexler property. Why is that? He may be involved, right? Leave it here. We'll have people using our phones. That'll be our alibi, right? We didn't have anything to do with it. Check our phones. When in reality, they have this entire scheme that they've been cooking up since July of 2016. You don't have to really pay somebody millions of dollars to create a snuff film. You just have to convince them that you can, right? Maybe even they were being catfished. Go look at the Schillmiller case if you don't believe me. But here, let's get into this. When you watch this video, I'm not convinced that there's not somebody underneath that bridge. So if you have somebody being dropped off at 154 to ambush Abby and Libby and another gentleman to force them into that trap, that's what we could be looking at right here. She says, is he right there? She's like, yeah.
See, this is the path that we are on.
Okay, and who is she talking to? So somebody's talking to her saying, hey, for whatever reason, go over here. Look, we're looking at where I want you to go. You have to cross the bridge, and that's where I want you to go. And then once you get down there, this is where I want you, this is what I want you to find. So once you go where I'm pointing you, right, you know where I'm telling you to go. You're going to cross the bridge. You're going to go over there somewhere. And then once you're over there, here's the close-up of where I want you, the exact location, right? And it almost looks to be painted. But I mean, it's probably natural. It's just something that stood out to me. Here, I'll pull it, see if I can pull those photos up. So I guess the question for you guys is, if the timestamp is off by by 13 minutes, which I believe that it is, does it mean anything? Are there any implications to that? We know mathematically it can't be Kelsey unless her car can fly or she's the fastest driver in that province. You know what I mean? Like, that means that she's street racing on any spare time that she has. Or she's hidden a helicopter somewhere or some kind of flying vehicle. I don't have anything organized right now. I apologize. My bad. Okay, here we go. Somewhat organized, I guess. Okay, so here's another creepy little factoid, I guess you could call it. According to Julian Powell, he was there the day before. He was there the day before from early in the morning. So did he stay late? Was he there all day? Let's see who else we got showing up. Kelly O, what's up, Kelly? Brian Solera, you work with what you got. That's why the 6 years that passed ruined any chances of verifying accurate timelines utilizing data from cell phone records, CCTV, and other means. Yeah, that phone data is, to me, that's turning into the smoking gun. Like, that seems to be the glue that's holding it all together. Like, you can try your best to say Richard Allen is innocent, but when you look at this factual information, you know 100% he's involved. Absolutely. I mean, we're talking factual information that you can actually lay in front of somebody to say, look, with your own eyes. To deny it is dishonest, in my opinion. Stephanie, what's going on? So they're on their way to the trails. We have somebody that's pulling in at 154, 6 minutes after they were dropped off, apparently getting ready to ambush them. Rick told Dr. Wallace he was laying in wait. Why the hell is he laying in wait? Who's he waiting for? Just anybody? A random victim? So on the way to the trails where it looks like they might be walking into an ambush, they're receiving a photograph that's pointing in the direction of where their dead bodies were found. Why are they getting an image of somebody looking at where they're going to eventually end up? Why? And why does law enforcement not know the answer to that question? And then it's followed up with this, like, specifically, this is where I need you to go. Well, how are they going to determine whether this is where the hell this is? How are they going to? They can't tell what this is. They can't decipher it from any other part of the woods. But interestingly enough, there seems to be like some kind of a marking here. Almost like some black paint or something. And it appears to be like sharpened. So what's so different about this photo? The only thing I could see was that it had these two black stripes. I don't know what that could mean. Did somebody create this stick and then go place it out here? Like, hey, I want you to go over here, right? So that would probably put it in the center of the photograph, like right here somewhere. And find this stick. Well, how would they know what the hell they're looking at unless it was marked? That could be natural, but I'm just saying that's the only thing that's standing out to me. These markings here. I don't see them on anything else. Sorry, I think Richard Allen was involved. I don't care how much people whine. Leave that poor old man alone. Oh, Ron Logan, sorry. I am lost. How do we know it's off by 13 minutes? Here, I'll show you. Let me close this. I have too many things open here. Too many folders. Okay. So we know that Brad Weber, we can prove it. He was on the private drive at 2:31. How do we know that? Well, Richard Allen told us that he was startled by a van. Libby's phone data tells us that right at 1:31 they began running. Richard Allen confessed that after he was startled by this van, they crossed the creek and he cut their throats. Well, according to Libby's phone data, right at 1:31, exactly when we should be expecting Brad Weber, and exactly when Rick Allen said he was startled, is exactly what the data on Libby's phone is showing. Like it's precise, down to the second almost. 1:31 in a few seconds. 548 steps. So after they go 548 steps, They stop. Richard Allen says he was scared by a van, crossed the creek, and killed the girls. What happens right at 2:32? At the exact moment that we should be expecting Brad Weber, or excuse me, 2:31 to be precise. This is when they stopped. So this is even more accurate, right? He left at 2:02. It's a 29-minute drive. You have him exactly down to the second where he should be at 2:31. So it is a fact. It is a fact that he's there at that point in time, if you ask me. So if that's a fact, we also have Michael Osbrook releasing this video of Brad Weber coming home. That's him. No, this is the wrong one. Sorry. I think that's the car. See you. Oh, here it is. Yeah, this one. Much better quality. So this camera is time-stamped at 2:44 a.m. Well, we know that this is Brad Weber. This is Brad Weber's van. And we know that he's on the private drive, almost to his home, past the bridge at 2:31. Richard Allen told us so. Brad Weber told us so, backed it up with his time card. And Libby's phone verified it for us. The only thing that doesn't match, which one of these things is not like the other? It's Osbrook's video that has a timestamp that's off, not only by, should it be PM instead of AM, but it's off by 13 minutes. Ooh, good news. Okay, great. So now that we know it's a fact, he was there at 2:31, yet we have this security footage showing 2:44. Well, the security footage is off by 13 minutes. Well, if this is off by 13 minutes, I'm assuming this is the same, from the same security camera, right? This car at 2:07. Just, much worse quality. It's a screenshot of a screenshot of a screenshot. It's a copy of a copy of a copy. So this apparently is at 2:07 with the same incorrect timestamp as the Brad Weber van timestamp. So you got to deduct the 13 minutes from this one, which is telling us we have somebody entering in, and I'm not convinced it's the same car, but for the sake of argument, let's say it is. We have a car coming in at 1:54, turns around and leaves at 1:55. Could they be dropping off somebody that's involved in the murders? Could this have anything to do with the boxy car that Brad Heath was seeing? Remember? Early in the morning. Is that possibly where those photographs came from? Are we looking at something that's done early in the morning? Right? According to the shadows, I think this would be at night. But it could be the evening before and part of the same plot. Right? If they're taking photographs, if they're setting a trap for Abby and Libby, and the people who sent this photograph are those people, and the people who are pulling into the private drive at 1:54 are involved with this, because we can obviously see two pair of legs. Like, who is that? Who are these two individuals right here? Well, you can say, well, those look like women's legs. Well, they're going to be stretched out because of the the shadowing. Look how you even have the bridge in the shadow. So the sun is down quite a bit. So if these two guys right here are involved in some kind of an ambush and they're stalking these girls on Snapchat, and you got burner phones involved, you have others helping to create alibis. I mean, what was the purpose of Rick even going to see his mom? Like, what was the whole point of that? Why am I going to wake up at 8 in the morning with my wife, who has to go to work, and I have the day off. Why am I waking up so early to go to drive all the way to Mexico, Indiana, which is basically Peru, Indiana? It's an 11-minute drive from Mexico to Peru. Why is he doing that? Why is he going basically? And don't forget, Kagan Klein is also up at 8 a.m. that day. If you go check out his transcripts during his interview and his interrogation, and remember, why were they interrogating him? Why did they serve a search warrant on him? Because of the Delphi case. It had nothing to do with his CSAM. That was something they did later on. He's being interrogated and searched and polygraphed in relation to the Delphi murders. What do they tell him? They're asking him, dude, we need to find these phones. The only two phones that they cannot find are the two phones that were logging in and out of the Anthony Schatz account that morning. If you go through the entire transcript, see the entire time they're looking for these phones. And one ended up in Las Vegas. One was a burner phone that was in Vegas. So there's two phones that they can't find, or three phones that they can't find. Or no, the burner phone they did find. So one out of the three that they were looking for, they found. In my opinion, I don't think they know that they found it. They didn't seem too interested. Kagan was like, oh, you saw when I was looking for that guy, right? In Vegas, right? On Craigslist. I was trying to meet him about drugs. You saw that, right? They're like, no, we don't care about that. Tell us about this. He's like, okay. So I think that made him a little bit comfortable. If there really was some kind of a conspiracy that began in July of 2016. Remember, Anthony Schatz was created in 2016, July, and the Klein plane tickets to Las Vegas were also bought in July of 2016. So right around the time they're buying tickets to Las Vegas, creating an account titled Anthony Schatz. So if you have these same knuckleheads who are pre-planning something and they have connections with people in Vegas, if those are the same knuckleheads that we can see in this fucking photograph, that's terrifying. If we're looking at those same people, for whatever reason, are targeting Abby and Libby, whoever they can convince to fall into this trap, it's pretty scary. And to me, this video represents that more than anything, right? 1:54 p.m. So right as the girls are taking a photograph of the bridge, it's almost as if that first Snapchat photo that they're here at the bridge set this vehicle in motion. But this vehicle doesn't stay. It appears to drop somebody off. In my opinion, that feeds more into the whole Keegan Klein angle. All right, let's see what you guys are talking about here. Scorpio, what up? They thought they were meeting a young fellow, and they don't know the difference. Yeah, I mean, I feel like they may have been ambushed. All right, doesn't this stick appear to be sharpened? It appears to be sharpened. It could be nibbled. You know, wild animals, they do that. But it also appears to be painted here. 2 black stripes. It's the only thing that's really standing out to me. So they're on their way to the bridge. And whoever took the photos obviously had to have been at the earliest the night before. Almost signaling to them, this is where I want you. Over here. I want you on this side of the bridge. And what do the girls end up doing? Going to that side of the bridge. And once you get there, find this. They never made it that far. Unless I'm wrong, these are just natural, some kind of mud or something, I don't know. It just looks like black paint to me. It also appears to be sharpened at the end. So cross the bridge, find the stick. But really all they wanted them to do was cross the bridge. Once you cross the bridge, and it's over for you. Because we're going to be waiting down at the bottom, and we're going to have crazy little Ricky making sure that you don't cross back over. And then we're going to have Keegan Klein hiding at the cemetery in case for whatever reason you guys get away, right? He'll see you and he'll take care of it. It looks like an ambush. Good to see you, Scorpio. Sees through. What's up? Pulled out of the cemetery right before 2:30 p.m. Surely, if Kleins were parked there, he would have noticed a red Jeep. I don't think there is a red Jeep. Forget about the red Jeep. Forget the red Jeep. They're not in the red Jeep. They might be in this box car, this vehicle that was seen by Betsy Blair. You could have one of them just kind of driving around. Stephanie, I think when they saw Richard, they began recording because they didn't expect an old man. I don't know. Maybe they did. Maybe they couldn't see that it was an old man. Maybe on that picture, the reason why it looks so weird, he's still kind of got his face covered a little bit. Or he's just kind of hiding his face. And they really don't know. Let's watch that video again. So remember, he's laying in wait. What's he waiting for? Okay, she's saying this is the path that we go down. So it's almost as if whoever sent her this photo might have tricked her. Like, hey, I left you something down here. I had to leave on a business trip. I left you something down here. I mean, what's this over here? Kind of looks like a doll. Like, hey, I left you something right here. I marked it with 2 black stripes. But really, all they wanted was to get the girls to cross the bridge. So Libby's saying this is the path that we go down. Like almost responding to the Instagram photos. Like I'll post this on the Instagram, or I'm gonna send this somewhere, indicating this is how we get down. I don't know how you got down there, right? Anthony Schatz. I don't know how you got down there to take those photos, but this is the hill that we go down. And then Abby kind of comes across and she's like, yeah, we can't go that way. We have to go here. She's like, oh, shit. Like there's still more to go. Like, come on, Libby. Like, like how far, where is this place?
Path.
So yeah, it's almost like that's the answer, right? That's the answer to this question. There's no path going here. We have to go down. Because that's true. If they stay up as opposed to going down, they're going to be on private property. People are going to see them. They're going to be definitely where they shouldn't be. But in order to get to this photograph right here, wherever this location is, which appears to be somewhere over here, where they ended up being trapped, right? Can't cross the bridge. Can't go up the private drive. There might be another bad guy down there underneath the bridge. And then even if you wanted to escape, maybe that was Keegan's role. Maybe that, how psychopaths always want to tell a half story. Maybe the truth is he was down there waiting. Maybe he did bring the girls back or one of the girls back. kind of like a West Memphis 3, something that we, maybe that's part of the story we haven't heard. Maybe he wasn't just sitting around. Maybe he was keeping a lookout and brought one of the girls back down or trapped them. But either way, that's just speculation. Either way, they appear to be surrounded completely. And the thought of the same people who set an ambush, the thought that that's the same people sending this photograph, sends chills down my spine. Because as far as I know, they have no clue where these came from and who they were communicating. They know that they were communicating with Anthony Shots as well. So how do we know Anthony Shots wasn't there the day before? Right? Trying to meet them there on Sunday. But the truth is that Abby and Libby were super busy on Sunday. They were really busy. They were hanging out with Anna. Abby was hanging around with her grandfather. Libby was coming back from spending the night at her, at somebody else's home. And then they were going to go hang out at Riley Park and kind of break in some of the equipment that they just purchased. Libby was getting ready to join the softball team. Right? You're going to join, you got to make sure you know your shit. Right? Well, I don't know my shit. Well, let's go. Let's go to the park. I'll play catch with you. We'll get you up to speed. So they're busy Sunday. Well, maybe that's what these creeps were doing, right? Over at the bridge. So they need to find out where these came from. Thank you, Jari. Yep. Remember, guys, if you can't hit the Cash App, hit that thumbs up. Stephanie, my only question, did Richard Allen also catfish them? I feel like he was recruited at some, in some way. Or he might have been part of a scheme. If you have somebody that's in Las Vegas saying, I will pay you a lot of money. I'll pay you tons of money if you can produce a real live murder. People say, oh, that's crazy. That doesn't happen. Well, it happened in 2019. Go look up the Schillmiller case. He didn't have millions of dollars, but what he was able to do was convince a bunch of idiots that he did. So you don't have to have $19 million. You just have to convince people like Kagan Klein that you do. And if you can do that, they will commit murder and afterwards be like, where's my money? And then whoever's catfishing them just disappears or says, well, fuck you. I ain't got no money. You're dumb that you did that. Even in the Schillmiller case where he catfished these people in Alaska to commit a murder, it was exactly like the Delphi case. They brought their best friend out to the woods and killed her and did it on film. Not only did they film it live, they were on the phone with the Schillmiller, the catfisher guy, who was promising to pay them $19 million. He didn't have shit. He was some fat fuck living in a basement. So remember, you don't have to have $19 million. There doesn't have to be some underground black market for snuff. There just has to be some psychopath out there knowing that all he has to do is convince these idiots to do his bidding. There was some creep that tortured fast food restaurants for years. He would literally catfish them over the phone and convince them that he was a homicide investigator and that they're under investigation and if I need to get corporate on the line, I will. And he would get them to strip naked and have other employees and family members sexually assault them right on camera. And these people were totally under his hypnosis. It just happens. That's why I tell you guys never to trust anybody, because trusting the wrong person leads you down that road. Just blind trust. What's up, Dark Side? Also, the only way... Here, let's stop sharing. Maybe that'll help. Yeah, let's try that. We'll close that, and close that. Sweet says, I'm behind. Where did the pics of the bridge with the possible leg shadows from? That was something that was downloaded from Instagram by Libby on the way to the trails. So those two photos of one of the angles was pointed right at the crime scene. And then one appears to be kind of where they're pointing, a much more close up of the location on the south side of that bridge, down by the water. So according to Libby's phone data, those two photos were uploaded from Instagram on the way to the trails. So they're literally in the car with Kelsey, driving, and they get these photos. And then when they get to the bridge, they start taking their own video that almost sounds like a reply to the same to these to those photographs. And then you also have somebody that appears to be coming in and out of the private drive right at 154, 6 minutes after they were dropped off, and just a few minutes after they began uploading to Snapchat. So the first time that they verified, hey, we're here. You also have Rick Allen claiming that he was laying in wait. He told Dr. Walla, I was laying in wait. Well, what the hell was he waiting for? And was he convinced that he was going to get paid a whole shit ton of money if he took part in this conspiracy? Was part of the planning, was the whole High Bridge part his idea? And one of the clients being like, yeah, I'm familiar with that area. That place is perfect. You have Rick Allen telling half-truths, like, hey, I'm on the stock ticker, and thinking I would make a lot of money. Remember what he said in the interview? I thought I would make a lot of money, but really I lost a bunch of money. Basically kind of saying I was in over my head. So the truth is he's in over his head, expecting to make a shit ton of money, but didn't. He was fooled, into doing what he did. Later on, tries to take his own life, but he's too much of a coward to do it. Dark side, it does appear to be marked. Hey, what's up? Curious Contrarian. Anything new? Always. Always new insights. Surely law enforcement know who published those pics on the bridge? No, they don't. Sees through. It was testified to in court. They have no clue. They know that they were communicating with Anthony Schatz. They just don't know what was said either on the Snapchat. Stephanie says, I think they pretended. No, I don't. Honestly, I don't know if they were even worried about the bridge guy. I think they were worried about him, but I think in the back of their mind, I'm like, oh, we can't panic. But they had no clue that this guy was going to take them down there and kidnap them. So they could have been talking with Anthony Schatz, who's being controlled by Richard Allen, and Richard Allen never told him that we were going to meet you there. Just for whatever reason was able to trick them into crossing that bridge right around that moment, to where they were able to know ahead of time. So all they had to do was be in a ready position, set the trap, right? If you're down on the private drive, you're also on the other side of the creek coming down through the cemetery. There's nowhere for the girls to come. So who's going to cover the bridge? Rick said, I will. I'll cover the bridge, right? In this scenario. They have the bridge covered. They can't escape that way. It's almost as if they anticipated they would cross the creek, right? Force them across the creek, and then somebody's waiting for them right there. Maybe that could explain this vehicle that we have pulling up at 154. Sees through. Kagan always felt like a copycat of Schillmiller to me. I just think they're the same type of person, right? We have all of these sadistic killers who do the same thing. They fantasize about murder. and then they're just going about a normal day. Then they see somebody like a young kid or a woman jogging, and something snaps. But the day that they've always known that would come, that day that they snap, they know it's coming. They've been preparing for it all their lives. So when you ask the question, like, how could Richard Allen go to sleep after this? Because he's been waiting for this day. He's like, well, it finally happened. I don't know why I did it. I just knew that it would happen one day. And this is the day I lost all control. So he's not shocked by it. He's not shocked. He's not like, oh my God, I can't believe it. He's been trying to hold it off for the longest. So the day that he's always been waiting for just happened to come. Now what? Let's take a nap. Let's continue what we do best, which is compartmentalization and hiding in plain sight. Being a chameleon. Definitely seems like he knew they was coming or would be there. Yeah, it appears that he's stalking them through Snapchat. Let me go back to this thing I put together that kind of supports that. Let's see, Snapchat. Hopefully it doesn't mess with my audio for sharing this. Close that, and we'll finish with this. Okay, so this is all of the supporting information that I have with the Snapchat angle. That if Rick was working alone, he was stalking through Snapchat, and if he was working with others, they were stalking through Snapchat. So they could have been targeting any one of these girls from the friend group, right? If they would have been there maybe a little bit sooner, they might have even targeted this group. But they're leaving, right? They didn't fall into the trap. They asked Bree, "Did you cross the bridge?" No, we didn't cross it. She didn't cross it. They needed somebody to cross that bridge. That's why Rick was so pissed. He's like, fuck, I can't get anybody across that bridge. That's why he remembered them so well. He knew he was stalking them on Snapchat. 12:50-ish. Back to the bridge. Went out a few steps. Not all the way. Kind of like how Rick tried to lie. I went out on the bridge. Not all the way. You know what I mean? Don't get me confused with that other guy. Boom, 12:43. So I feel like this could have been the trigger, right? 12:43. Oh shit, they're at the trails. Might even think that that's Abby. 126. So if Rick is stalking them on Snapchat, it would fit very well. You have 126, this photo going up to Snapchat, and then boom, right away. You got Rick 1 minute, almost less than 2 minutes later, probably leaving from the cemetery, right? They got a guy over there on the private drive. You got Richard Allen and Kagan Klein at the cemetery monitoring the phones, burner phones, right? Boom. You have that photograph that goes out. This is uploaded to Snapchat. 2 minutes later, here's Rick zipping down to cut him off. Like, hey, I'll block him. They snap another photo at 126, and that's when they report seeing this idiot walk by. Looking pissed as hell, too. Right? Probably because it wasn't Libby, or it wasn't Libby and Abby. Or he's just pissed off because he's getting in that zone, right? He's getting in that I'm a killer mindset. The guy looks like Richard Allen. I mean, it looks just like him. All right. His job is to watch the bridge. Why is it his job? Because he loves that bridge. He's easy on that bridge. Who are you going to put on there? TK? You ain't going to put TK up on that bridge. Kagan? Maybe. He's probably afraid of that bridge. Whoever this other asshole is, maybe the Trexler, underneath the private drive, there's nowhere for them to go. Dark side. Richard did say he thought they were older. Yeah, he's going to tell a truth when it's convenient for him, and he's going to tell a lie when it's convenient. And he's going to have his own motivation. So if Rick's laying in wait, what is he waiting for? He's waiting for this. Photo came out at about 2 p.m. Boom. 4 minutes later, you have a car pulling up. The exact amount of time it would take to leave the cemetery and go the back road towards Ron Logan's property and then towards the private drive is about 5 minutes. So if they're stalking these Snapchat profiles, right? Is that her? Yeah, that could be her. 126. All right, go for it, Rick. Rick zooms over to the CPS building. Walks up to the girls. Shit, it's not them. All right, we'll check everything else. And then boom, this photograph goes up. Oh shit, they're here. They're at the bridge. 5 minutes later, you have a car pulling into the private drive. So by the time this photograph is taken, there's somebody underneath, potentially, right? Underneath the private drive. Caught on camera. Entering at 154, dropping somebody off. That person is walking right now or was just dropped off there, knowing that Brad Weber's not home. Knowing, I always come here around this time. These people are snowbirds. They're not going to be home. And then at 2:13, they're being taken down. And this is all proven. It's all backed up by factual information. But one thing it does support, all of this evidence supports that the girls were stalked with the T, with an ST, on Snapchat. And we know that Kagan Klein was the one who had been catfishing them, potentially targeting them. So if anything, the footage that was put out by Michael Osbrook, which is off by 13 minutes and isn't AM, it's PM, I think supports the whole Kagan Klein angle. Right? We know others are involved. If Kagan Klein, his phone is showing connected to the Trexler Wi-Fi, that tells me that those folks could be potentially involved. People that are there at that household. And they could be in any vehicle. It's definitely not a red Jeep. It could be anything. It could be the vehicle that we're watching on that private drive CCTV footage. That could be a Trexler vehicle. That could be the boxy vehicle seen by Betsy Blair and Brad Heath, right? The others who are involved. The people who are sending these photographs are taking photographs pointing at the crime scene from what appears to be the night before, and then also another photograph of down near the water on the south side. So the same people who are trying to lure Abby and Libby across the bridge and down down the hill over there in that corner, they might have a plan. They might be up to something. There might be more to the story. And that vehicle that Osbrook and them are trying to show as somehow either pointing to Kelsey or to the Odinism stuff, really it's just pointing more to Kagan Klein and Trexler and Richard Allen and all of them being connected together while stalking the girls via Snapchat, in my opinion. Thank you, Jar. Yep. There's the Cash App if you guys want to support my channel. This is probably going to be like our 5-minute warning. Hey, what's up, Cryptex? What up? Good to see you. He's right there on the bridge once they've crossed. Yeah, I mean, we have absolutely no clue whether somebody was under the bridge while Libby was photographing Richard Allen. You know, somebody could have been dropped off by that vehicle at 154, and when the girls went down the hill, there's somebody down there. They could have even been expecting somebody to be down there. They're like, oh, well, you know, the person that we're expecting is down there. We have no reason to be afraid of this bridge guy, right? We're going to go down there to our friends, and there's no trail going there, so we have to go down here. And maybe even Abby and Libby both know that the person that they're waiting for might be down there. They can see somebody. Somebody's down there communicating like, hey, we're here. I'm down here. Just look. They're like, okay, no reason to be afraid of the bridge guy. Yes, he seems strange, but our other friends are already here. But lo and behold, it's not who they think it is underneath the bridge. And the person who's underneath the bridge is working with the guy that they absolutely should be fearing. This bridge guy, this Richard Allen, who may be expecting some type of monetary gain if he participates in this conspiracy. Right? He's talking about the stock ticker, how I lost all this money from the stock ticker. They're looking for, during the investigation, there was some kind of a UFO connection to the Anthony Shop account. That's a live streaming app. So you don't have to have $14 million to give to a bunch of idiots to get them to produce a snuff film. You just have to convince those dummies that you will. Charmaine J. I always find it hard to believe Richard Allen did the crime alone. Well, if this other vehicle is involved, he definitely didn't. And if you believe Kagan Klein's confession, then he absolutely didn't. And if you can try to explain why Richard Allen isn't talking about an alibi or giving his, I don't know, his version of events, he just doesn't want any issues. He doesn't want these people who are obviously murderers and into potentially filming young girls and selling it. You know, there might be a huge market that he was exposed to. It could be terrifying for him. He has his own daughter. He has his wife that he loves dearly. He has all the motivation he needs to keep his mouth shut, right? I don't want my daughter and my mother being part of some kind of sick film, some kind of conspiracy where these guys get together and they stalk and plot on young people online and then document it and sell it to sickos in Las Vegas. Shit like that. Lane says mathematically impossible it was Richard Allen. The Hoosier camera just happens to be off by 13 minutes. Well, the Hoosier camera is not off. It's off by a whole lot. The exact time they needed it to be off to make Richard Allen fit at the killer, way too convenient. Well, you must have missed the live stream because we've already proved it through not only Richard Allen's own words, we've proved it through Libby's phone data, and then we just went ahead and put the cherry on top with the testimony of Brad Weber, which matches up with his time card, punch in and punch out. So absolutely, there was a van at 2:31 right on the private drive just past the bridge. That's a fact. Cryptex. I would love to watch KK's confession. Grissom Air Force Base. Really curious. Why is that not available to the public? It's a good question. Why wasn't he part of the trial? Why wasn't the fact that he confessed to these murders ever brought up by Richard Allen's attorneys? Oh, that's because their firm represented not only Ron Logan, but Kagan Klein also. If they bring up Kagan Klein, it's a conflict of interest, and they have to remove themselves from the case. And remember, this wasn't about freeing Richard Allen. It was about free promotion for the firm. And I don't blame them for that. I don't blame them. All right, guys, if you're part of the replay crew, you know exactly what to do. Drop a comment, we'll get back to you. Let me know what you think about all of the information that was provided today. It's kind of a piggyback off the last live stream. So I think it's official, 100% fact. The van was on the private drive at 1:31. That is a fact. There's no arguing that. So I think if you start there, you're going in the right direction. Now, the only question that remains is the vehicle coming into the private drive at 1:54 and leaving a minute later. Is this one of the conspirators? Is this somebody that's involved in setting a trap? Does it have anything to do with the photographs that Libby is downloading from Instagram? Apparently, one of the photographs is pointing at the crime scene, and the other appears to be actually down on the ground at the crime scene. And why is she making a video saying, this is the way we go down? And why is she uploading these photos that appear to be taken the night before on her way to the bridge, while it appears that Richard Allen is stalking them via Snapchat, according to the timeline that was provided? I mean, it looks like a setup, guys. It looks like an ambush, and it fits into what was going on with Kagan Klein in his confession. Remember, it's the only official confession. And Richard Allen also said, I covered them with sticks. Of course he did. All right, guys, that's going to do it. Take care of yourselves. If we have time, I might see you a little bit later tonight. Otherwise, take care of yourselves and don't do anything I wouldn't do. Peace.